Welcome to Connections for Life in our special Halloween edition. I'm Ted P.
I'm Chad Kuba.
I'm the artist formerly known as Joe Surratt.
You didn't do it, Chad. We restarted so you could do it.
And then I decided not to because you put too much pressure on me and that wasn't fair.
You look like the vampire from Hotel Transylvania. Like
I wonder if that's what it's supposed to be. I want
you look like him that went on a bender. Like you get look at it from the side though. They had to get him out of rehab for after 6 to 8 weeks. What's wrong with you guys?
I took this mask off of a prop outside of our house in our Halloween decorations.
What mask?
It smelled awful.
What mask? I thought you were just having a bad acne day.
Yeah, I thought you were just needing to wash your face. What are we doing?
It was between that one and I want to. Where'd he go?
I left. I don't like you guys
easy.
anymore.
It was between that one or this one. I like this one though too, but
Baby vampire.
Maybe
You could have saved that for next week.
But now we can't.
Yes, I can.
Go. How'd it go, guys? How you been? How was your weekend?
How'd it go, guys? Way to bring it in, host.
The most toast.
This shows we're on an upward trajectory, and then it just completely bottomed out again. I think the last 2 weeks of us being at trade shows ruined us.
It was hard. It was a lot of work.
I'm still tired.
Me too. And you guys are leaving tomorrow for another one.
And I have to go tomorrow.
Yeah,
Me too.
I'm not doing that.
And the weather's supposed to stink.
Yeah, I looked it up. It's like a high of
65
62 or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, it'll probably snow this week in upstate New York. So
Yeah.
I've been debating whether I was going to fly or drive up there in December when I come. I think I might drive actually. Just worry about the snow. I worry about cutting across Buffalo and all that fun stuff.
It's eerie. You gotta work.
Buffalo and Erie in December. I'm just saying, you're rolling the dice on that one.
Well, so maybe I could end up in a ditch and not have to come at all then. With the plane, it's
Yeah, but if you ditch your car a block from home, that doesn't count.
Darn it.
More likely than not.
Yeah, if I went to a ditch, I left 14 minutes ago. Gotta go home.
Can't make it. Things cold.
Chad, it's 73 in Columbus.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Roads were slick.
What'd you do over the weekend, Teddy?
It was crazy busy actually. So Saturday, my daughter had the Stack cross country championships. So she runs varsity cross country for her school, and the Stack is a conference that we're in, and she ran extremely well. She PR'd for the season, and she took 26th place overall in the entire conference as an 8th grader running varsity.
That's awesome, Joe. What are you scanning?
You'll see in a minute.
Yeah. And then on Sunday, we got done with that. We were gone. We were in Oneonta, which is 2 hours away from my house, all day for that Saturday for that. And then on Sunday, we got up at the butt crack of dawn. Actually, it was still dark out when we were on the road. It was 6 a.m. And we drove an hour and 45 minutes to Joe, and we played lacrosse for 4 games out in the chilly weather yesterday.
Yes.
So, yeah, and then came home from there. It was a long weekend of sports. I finally got to rest yesterday about 6 p.m.
Oof.
How about you, Joe?
I've been sick, so I didn't do anything. I got sick the day we're coming back from Charlotte last week. Was that Wednesday? I wasn't feeling great, and then I was down and out Thursday, Friday, and most of Saturday. But yesterday I was feeling a little bit better. So not COVID, but just a little bug.
I wonder if it was maybe how I felt. I don't know why, but I felt absolutely terrible.
Mine was all in my throat and my chest.
Mine was just in the back of my nose, but I just did not feel right. I don't know, but sorry if I gave you a cold or whatever it was.
That's all right, man. I think Friday I slept 9 of 11 possible waking hours. I
also don't think those flights help us much and all that. I mean, that
the mask is brutal on the flight.
The mask is
so brutal on the flights.
Well, my girls were all sick. Lila's sick again. She got sick last night. So it was just a little thing going around here, which is kind of awful. But you guys know how it is when you have kids that are sick. It's just
Yep.
Well, back in the time before 2020, that was just,
that was just a normal cold. You'd have a cold or get sick in October every year.
When your kid gets sick, the whole house gets sick, and That's just what it is. So
Yeah,
Ted.
this one just took me out. I don't know. It's weird.
What did I do Saturday and Friday? Yesterday we went up to see Logan, who played. He had a game yesterday morning against Culver. They lost, unfortunately. They lost like 6-2. Not indicative of the game. They should have lost about 3-2. Really.
Is that where he used to go? Or he was gonna go?
That's where he was gone. Almost went to school. Yeah. So we spent the day with him. Essentially, went to lunch with him and everything. I haven't seen him in about a month, and probably won't see him until Thanksgiving now. Saturday, I don't think we did a whole lot.
All right, you should be at least prepared after 77 episodes to know that the question's coming.
Yeah.
I mean, just pass.
Can we come back to me?
No.
Can you do
No.
your guess? And we'll come back.
Oh, that was great.
Hey, here's the thing. Here's the God's honest truth is I don't know really what day it is any day. After like the last 2 to 3 weeks of flying, like and coming back and in and out.
Yeah,
and then I was
it's
in
been a little
Indiana with Zoe the weekend before. Like, I don't even know what day it is.
We go to
I'm not
Maryland
even really sure.
tomorrow.
Yeah. Like I don't know. I got yelled at for not taking out the trash for the first time in 20 months because my days were all messed up from actually traveling. Like that was one of my jobs while I was home. I failed. I felt miserable too.
Should have, because your wife literally does 99.9% of things. You couldn't do
Probably a
your
little
job.
more than that.
Yeah,
If possible.
99.999.
If possible.
And the scale doesn't even go to that decimal point. Like,
Yeah,
I'm just
correct.
you know,
You are
Yeah,
correct.
Jed just wakes up pretty much.
I'm
every day.
grateful.
exactly.
Possibly.
So guys, I started this little thing. Remember, like the cool what Teddy referred to as altruism, which I believe is still
Hey,
incorrect.
Doug gave
No, I
us the
didn't
actual
refer to it as
definition there.
that. I
on
asked if
YouTube.
that was the word.
6 and 1/2 dozen of the other.
What did Doug say?
I will come back to that. Go ahead, Joe.
All right. So this week is give a cold shoulder. Anybody want stop meaning being unwelcomed or antisocial towards someone. Do you guys have any idea where that originates?
Where that came from? To give the cold.
I have to
shoulder?
assume that if you were sick, you turn your shoulder to somebody so that you didn't get them sick. That's
It's a
my
good
guess.
guess. It's a good guess.
I would have to say that maybe it has something to do with the other side of like the pillow. Like, if you're laying in bed and like the cold shoulder is the one that's up in the air. I don't know.
Okay, that's also plausible. They're both wildly incorrect, but
So was
Good try.
altruism for Ted.
I liked where you guys were thinking. What I find funny about all these is the ones that I find they almost all start with in medieval England. Like every single one. And I'm like, we didn't come up with anything new since like we're still saying this. I don't know. So anyway,
I don't know. I heard a phrase over the trade show that was pretty good. She's a full bubble off a level. Or how is it? Off center, full bubble off center.
You didn't even get it right. Go finish, Joe.
anyways, so in medieval England, it was customary to give a guest a cold piece of meat from the shoulder of mutton, pork, or beef chop when the host felt it was time for the guest to leave. This was a polite way to communicate you may leave now. So to give the cold shoulder was actually to give a piece of meat to get the hell out of my house.
I'm 100% getting like 40 of them.
Oh, you should. You should.
I'm gonna go to places. I'm gonna go to places and leave.
I'm
the
just gonna
shoulder
throw
on
pork
the
chops at
table.
people. Get out.
Mutton. Can somebody
That's
explain?
what I'm giving away for
Cool.
Halloween.
I
I'm
like
just
that one. That one's neat.
throw mutton at people.
What is
Yeah,
mutton?
so lamb or sheep, lamb. I think it's lamb.
Lamb?
A cut of lamb. Yeah, I believe.
A cold piece of lamb. Okay, that's a good one. Now, what's your gas fact?
Oh, I don't have one.
All right.
So I needed to jump back to
yeah,
Doug,
you did. Yeah, what Doug say?
Doug just wanted to let you know, Ted, for your edification, that's what it says.
Ted, spell it.
Altruism, the belief in or practice of disinterested and selfless concern for the well-being of others.
You couldn't have been any further off.
I don't even know what that definition. Can you read the definition again?
Ted, for your edification,
I'm done.
altruism,
I quit.
the belief in or practice of disinterested and selfless concern for the well-being of others.
Okay.
So if you're being altruistic, it means you're.
I think you don't have any concern for anybody else.
you
Yeah.
don't.
Or you have a lot. I'm not sure though.
We are
Doug,
Doug, if you
definitely-
can elaborate on that this week.
And I'm the one
Yeah,
getting
Doug,
mocked
you-
here.
Could we get a
I know we're gonna have
country
Doug
of
on.
origin, please? Country of origin, please.
Doug, we need you to come on the show and explain edification.
Yeah.
Actually, we need to explain the English language. Apparently, everyone just start at A. We'll go right through the dictionary.
You got
Maybe
episodes
we'll
for
learn
days. Episode
so
8.
right before you get to your gas fact, I want to
Gas
let you
fact.
know that somewhere along the line, not sure where, I think you got my computer, and the one with the slide of the picture that kicks out from the side with you, the sunglasses, is gone.
Yes.
I don't know how, though. It's really
Gas
upsetting.
fact of gas.
So are you trying to put another one together?
No, not yet.
Gas.
Gas
fact.
Surprised it's not the guy in the flamingo suit coming across the screen.
That will be the
Thank
new
you.
one.
Thank you.
Doesn't
Thank you for
matter. That's been on the
creativity.
internet. I mean, I can't. I'm not hiding it now. So I don't know if you guys saw these at SGA. Actually, Chad, I think you're the one who brought them to my attention. Maybe.
No, Sarah brought them over to you.
So these
I did see them though for a second.
So they're playing cards from the Supplers Guild.
Uh-huh.
That's who was, I guess, put these out. If you scan the little code, it brings you to their website. The little code. Wait.
Oh, that's what you're scanning, eh?
Wait, where the hell's the code?
You lost it. What are they?
How's that
They should
going
have it,
so
why don't they
well
have it on
right
every
now?
card.
How
It's
is it
going
even
so well.
possible? Oh, it's on the back.
This is bad.
It's on the back of the card. So
Okay.
you scan that. Each one of the cards has a gas fact on it, which I thought was really cool. So I'm gonna ask you guys a question. The one I had, now I lost.
Joe now has 52 gas facts lined up.
Actually,
probably
honestly,
54,
most
there's
of
no
them we've already talked about, to be completely honest. But today's question is, blank percent of the natural gas used in the United States is domestically produced.
Well,
Blank percent.
Can you give us 4 different choices at least?
No.
And I agree with Ted. It's 12. It's probably more like, I'm gonna say it's probably
I think it's, you said blank percent is produced locally, like sourced.
Blank
Domestically?
percent of natural gas consumed in the United States is produced domestically. What percent of the natural gas that we use in the United States is
80%.
produced?
I'm gonna say 29%, unfortunately, and be very sad about it.
29, is that what you said, Ted?
Yeah,
Switch those two numbers.
92.
92%.
I almost said 90. I thought it was going to be really high because we actually export natural gas.
Because you're being altruistic. I don't even know if that's in the right use, but I'm gonna say it anyways.
I wish I could stop.
Altruism.
I wish I could stop your guys' video instead of just mine, and just be like, boom.
If you stop mine, I'm never coming back. I'm leaving. It's over with.
It's done.
You get one shot. That's it.
That's it.
Imagine it.
All
Can you
right.
imagine he stops your video, turns it back on, and Joe's just mooning the camera?
I'd be gone. You would. It'd be like
The chair is
this is what you
spinning.
would see when you came back. Right
The
here.
chair is spinning.
Anyways,
Oh,
let's
man.
let's bring
Great.
on this week's guest.
Oh, we have a
Really
guest.
interesting one.
Okay.
I
So,
think we're still doing that, right?
yeah, that's what we're supposed to do on the show. I think we've just turned it into us talking, but that's okay. That seems to
Don't
work
worry
too.
about it anyway.
Today we are going to bring on a very, very, very interesting fellow. All right, and I use the term fellow for him because I had the privilege of hearing Zack Perconti speak twice before I ever met him. All right, I sat in on 2 of his government affairs relations committees at different what are they called? Groups that I'm a part of, so to speak.
Breakout committees or just
Whatever it's called that I was a part of. So
altruisms.
yeah, altruism. 2 of the altruisms I was a part of. So I was very altruistic while I was listening to
All right,
Zack
I feel
speak.
like we've beaten the horse to death. It's dead. The horse is dead.
Are we making dog food out of it now?
Oh my god.
Okay. Moving on. Zach is the government affairs associate at Wyman and Associates. Essentially, he's a lobbyist. And he, for the dirty word of it, as he talks about in his interview, but Zach is really, really, really smart. And
He's amazing.
there were so many times during the interview where I was just like, wow, like I didn't know.
Do you ever
that's-
wonder, like, I don't mean to be like a jerk about this, but do you ever wonder about people that are so smart about that? Like if they're like so bad at something else, like, do you know what I mean? Like, if you're
I
good at
understand.
that, like, does he know how to like,
I think it's interesting that Zach is this week's interview just because over lunch yesterday, Logan and I somehow talked about politics and he has political science and stuff like that. And we were talking and I got to give him and Lindsay the definition of a lobbyist and where it came from. And the only reason I knew that was because of Zach. So it's kind of funny that like,
it's just incredible, like how smart he was. Like I know in our
That was
interview,
awesome.
like before and after, because obviously we talk before and after, like it's incredible how like, I mean, Zach's young.
Very young.
Yeah, he's young. And I mean, his knowledge is like, I jokingly said, and I don't know if I said it in the interview or not, but like, when are we going to see like Zack Perconti for Congress?
Yeah.
Like,
He's kind of
seriously,
smart,
like I think he's one of those people that is like just so heads and shoulders above everybody when it comes to knowledge and understanding politics and everything that goes on and behind the scenes. It's
And explaining it.
Yeah.
Like, very open
easily understandable.
Right.
I mean, for us,
Yeah.
we can understand it like anybody can.
Pretty much.
That's it. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Zack Perconti. Hello, Zack. Welcome to Connections for Life. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well, Ted. Thanks for having me today.
Well, Joe and Chad's choice, not really mine.
What's up, Zach? How are you?
How you
We
doing?
just let him come on occasionally. Yeah. What's up, Zach?
Like
How are
every
you?
week.
Yeah, every week. He's provided some value lately. You're moving up to Argon.
Just a smidgen of value.
If anybody watches our shows, you know what that means. Hey Zach, what's up, man? We thanks for coming on the show. You have a pretty cool story. We talked to you a week or so ago, and I think our audience will really enjoy what you have to say. But let's start where we start everybody with how did you get into what you're doing? Let's tell us your background and how you got to where you are today.
Sure. So again, thanks for having me on. Yeah, it is kind of a bit of a circuitous road. Nobody grows up thinking that they want to be a DC lobbyist. I mean, maybe some folks do, but I've never met anyone that does. I grew up in the DC area, so I feel like I would. No, I started out, growing up in this DC area. You're kind of immersed in politics. I personally don't know anybody in this area who didn't at least have a passing exposure to it growing up. Almost everybody knows somebody that works in this DC policy world. And so I was kind of always vaguely aware that this was a thing, but it never really is where I thought I was going to end up. I always thought as a kid that, I was more into like science and history. And when I went to college, that's what I studied. I originally started studying physics and history. And as I, went through college, I found myself asking a lot of questions when it came to the science and history research about how we got where we were. Like with these big projects, like take the Manhattan Project, classic example, government funding, advanced research, nuclear armament for one, but then after you get into the Cold War, you see the government research apparatus really ramp up. NASA, a whole bunch of other agencies stood up. And all of these funding decisions were very political decisions, right? And there's all the interesting history, the Cold War, all that wraps into it. So I found myself getting really interested in the policy and the politics behind why these decisions were made, and decided that, maybe policy and politics is what I want to do. So after undergrad, I did a couple internships. Went to graduate school, got myself a master's in public policy, and found myself working as a lobbyist on behalf of the utility contracting industry. Once I started getting into this field, I found pretty quickly that infrastructure was where I wanted to be. And so I've been at Wyman Associates now for a little over 2 years, advocating on behalf of utility contractors nationwide.
The master's degree thing got me. I mean, that cannot be the most exciting course of like policy. And what was it? And for your master's, that does
Public
not sound
policy.
fun.
I mean, I had a great time. If you're not a huge dork like me, you're not necessarily going to enjoy it. A lot of numbers, a lot of pretty, dense policy papers. But I mean, for me, I had a great time, and I think it was a really good use of time getting that higher education in what goes into the whole political policymaking process.
Where did you go for your undergrad and your master's?
So I went to William and Mary for my undergraduate degree, which I
Awesome
ended up
place.
in history.
Yeah.
And then for graduate school, I went to the Schar School of Public Policy at George Mason University. So just right around the corner.
Yeah.
There is.
I think Zach might be the smartest person we've ever had on the show.
I highly doubt that.
You actually said a word in the beginning. I have no idea what it means.
That was a 50-cent word, Jack.
I was
Yeah,
like,
you said
I
the word,
got it.
and you got to see when the episode.
We all went.
I nodded along with it like I wasn't with you, but I have no idea what you mean. Hang on. Yeah, what was that? I'm gonna have to Google that one later.
Kind of following up, and we always kind of stay on the same series of questions. But what exactly does Wyman do? What do you guys do? Wyman and Associates.
So great question. Being a lobbyist is kind of a very, well, let's face it, we don't have the best press.
Yeah.
I wish that our industry could hire some PR folks on our behalf, because there's a lot of misconceptions about what a lobbyist does.
You mean you don't just stand in the lobby anymore waiting for people to walk by?
No, although that is where the word does come from. Way back when.
We learned that last week from somebody. That's the only reason I know.
I think it was him in the pre-call.
I think it was Jim in the
back
pre-call.
to,
It's
the
worse.
British Parliament in Westminster, where you'd have folks waiting around in the lobby of the House of Commons, trying to catch the members of Parliament as they walked out. That may be somewhat apocryphal, but that is where the word comes from today. We don't do, let me put it this way, we don't do what the public thinks we do. To the point that when I introduce myself to people, I often do avoid that word. I say, oh, what do you do? Oh, I work in government relations. I'm an advocate, things like that. Because when you say the word lobbyist, people
has a negative connotation.
Waiting outside with a briefcase full of cash, right? Yeah. We don't do that. What we really do is we serve as a collective voice for the whole industry. Right.
I thought you were going to say you had truckloads of cash. Not
again, I wish, but that's not what we do.
So much easier, wouldn't it?
Truckloads of cash, personally, but that's not what we do. No, what we do is in that First Amendment, right? There's the right to petition for the redress of grievances. Lobbyists are effectively that. Instead of every person in the utility contracting industry having to individually write their member of Congress about every little issue that comes up, they go to one person or a couple of people, in this case, myself and my colleagues, and we do that for you. And that's really all we do is serve as a direct voice for the industry in Washington. So a lot of what I do is just communicating what the industry believes in. I'll write letters to Congress. I'll sit in meetings with congressmen and their staff, and just communicate what the industry is thinking. I'll put together a grassroots campaign to help folks that work in the industry communicate directly with their lawmakers. So, I'm not always the one that's actually doing the talking. Sometimes what I do is facilitate that conversation. Like if you were to come into DC for an event and you were to want to meet with your lawmakers, I'd help make that happen. So that's really a large part of what we do. And yes, there is the political side that gets into it. Not all of our clients contribute to political campaigns. And I do stress campaigns. Again, you don't walk into a congressman's office and hand him a briefcase and say, thanks for your vote. You support congressional campaigns that already agree with the issues that you support. You never try to persuade somebody by making a donation. You contribute to support the election of candidates that already have the same ideas that you do.
That's interesting.
Your industry thinks are going to do the right things for frankly, the thousands of voters that take an active daily role in that industry.
That's interesting.
So when you do that, that is essentially employees and employers and business owners all standing up and saying, we support this candidate because we agree with his ideas.
That's pretty neat.
His or her ideas.
I don't think I ever looked at it that way. I think I always kind of looked at it as an advocate like yourself trying to change someone's mind. And it's pretty interesting to actually look at it and say, we're backing this horse because he's the guy who thinks like we do. That's pretty neat.
Yeah.
That's essentially all there really is to it.
Well,
that's pretty cool.
That brings me to the next question of essentially, we met through Underground Construction Technologies and the Distribution Contractors Association, which are organizations that Wyman and Associates represent government affairs. So I had the privilege of sitting in on yours and Evan's government affairs and government relations speeches or informative sessions at UCT and at DCA this year.
See where that word thing got us? You used that big word. He couldn't get out that.
Pretty standard.
Sorry, Chad. I love you.
That's pretty standard for our show.
I'm going back to mute. Sorry.
Yeah, he muted himself because I was going to do it. But so you talked about how you find constituents or you find congressmen and whatnot, politicians who align with our views. Stop it, Joe. Don't interrupt me. I'm going somewhere.
Wow, man. This is like boom.
No, don't. So you find those who align with views for the organizations you represent. Okay. So what other organizations besides DCA does Wyman and Associates represent?
So great question. And that's one of the things that I like.
It was a great question, Joe.
It was really long.
Eventually, it was a great question.
So I thought it was a good question. That's one of the things that I like about. That's one of the things I like about working for the firm that I do, because we very much have a niche. Wyman and Associates represents a bunch of different contractors that are all involved in that utility space, that underground excavation space. And so whenever we go into a lot of these meetings, we have a reputation as a voice for utility contractors nationwide, and we kind of bring a coalition to the table with us automatically. Because all of our groups are pretty much in lockstep about just about everything. And a lot of folks are a member of multiple different organizations. So to answer your question specifically, we also work on behalf of the Power and Communications Contractors Association. And the Power and Communication Contractors, they are kind of what the name suggests, electric and broadband make up the bulk of their membership. We also have the client that I generally work the most on behalf of, the National Utility Contractors Association. They are pretty broad in terms of their membership. That kind of captures everything. The bulk of their members probably do the most of their work in the water, wastewater, sewer markets, a little bit of stormwater work as well. And they are probably the largest in terms of the number of members and chapters they have nationwide. They've got a presence pretty much in most of the country, not quite in every state, but in most of them. And then the other two folks that I'm just going to mention real briefly, we've also worked on behalf of the American Pipeline Contractors Association. They're more interstate natural gas type work. And then the Plastics Pipe Institute Energy Piping Systems Division. So they're more on the materials side of things. But essentially all of our folks have a lot of common areas of interest. And that really does help when you go to the advocacy table, because you can say, not only does DCA support this, but so does NUCA, so does PCCA.
Well, you're representing a bunch of people with the same policy.
A bunch of people. I mean, we have, once you look at the individual members of all of our different organizations, we're speaking on behalf of thousands or even tens of thousands of people every time we go into a congressional office. And I think that's kind of neat, personally.
It is cool. I'm going to switch it up. I know we have some questions and we kind of talked to you about, but I want to ask just one kind of maybe outside the box a little bit. I imagine that for every one of you out there doing that, there's another one on the other side, right? There's probably yin and yang. There's also people that are advocating for things that you aren't advocating for, that maybe potentially your clients don't necessarily agree with. I just wanted to know, what are the biggest challenges dealing with objections? What is the biggest challenges of your job?
I figure they just have a fight club in
That's what I was thinking. I would be fist fighting in the lobby.
And the first thing you can't do is talk about it.
Right. I was just wondering.
It depends, because
yeah,
we can be very friendly with some of the folks that are on the other sides of the issue. There are definitely folks that I've met with, even only in being in this role 2 years, that, when I first met them, they were advocating for one side of the issue, and now they're on the other side. So mercenaries are definitely out there. I don't consider myself a mercenary personally when it comes to the stuff that I'm backing. I just mentioned the national utility contractors. One of their issues is frankly just advocating for clean water funding. This country's water infrastructure is in terrible shape. There are $500 billion of necessary work across drinking water and wastewater. And federal funding is a drop in the bucket right now compared to what's out there. So you don't get a ton of opposition on the other side of that. Right. And that's something that I think, at least personally, I feel good about working on. And I feel like everyone should support. Nobody wants to have.
I think that's really interesting. You bring
that's a fair point. Yeah.
I think it's really interesting, and I'll go off a little bit of script, but you know, that water portion of things compared to the natural gas side has always been, you know, when you think about natural gas pipeline leaking, what do you think of? You think of the explosions, you think of devastation. When you think about how much water being lost out of a pipeline, what do you think? Maybe some lost revenue. It's so cheap, you know, but it absolutely amazes me. And there was some number of years ago that came out that tells you how much clean drinking water is actually lost into our ground.
15%, I think.
It's something insane. So
I think the allowable limit I believe, and you can fact check me on this, anybody if you want, but I think it's like 15%, like up to 15% is okay.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy though.
We lose a tremendous amount of clean water every day in this country. And, you know, with the droughts and stuff that have been happening in recent years, I think it just adds urgency to the issue of getting this fixed. And I do want to bring this back around to your question earlier about, you know, what do you do with folks on the opposite side? Because this is actually one of those areas where we do sometimes run into a little bit of surprising opposition. And it's often, frankly, a question of education. The issue I always go back to is there's this funding mechanism called private activity bonds, right? Essentially, they're subject to a volume cap. The state can only issue so much. That would, you know, kind of puts a limit on how much can be used for water projects. It's just another funding mechanism. It doesn't privatize the infrastructure. It's still owned by the municipality. But that word private in there scares people.
Yeah.
There are some groups out there that they see the word private. They don't entirely understand what it means, but they think that means that we're advocating for privatizing water infrastructure. Gotcha. Nobody wants that. I personally have not spoken to anybody who's advocating for that. I'm sure there are some folks out there who do, but that's not what we're supporting when we support private activity bonds. The municipality is still owning the asset there. The utility is still owning it. So we do run into opposition from groups when we support this, saying, you know, hang on, you're trying to privatize water infrastructure, you're trying to sell off our drinking water. And that becomes a question of education. That's not really what we're advocating for here. And we've had a lot of success changing minds on that. In fact, that's actually included in some of the
it's amazing, Zach, that you know, just you're talking about water, obviously, but we have the same issues when we talk about natural gas, and you know, natural gas too. It's education. It really is. Joe, I know you have something to add to that.
No, I was just gonna say that's exactly what it is. It's people don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
And
until they know.
Well, I just think there's a lot of mixed messages and there's a lot of preconceived notions about things, and people don't spend the time to really understand it all before they make a decision. And I think, you know, the value that you guys offer is like, I got to tell you, I'm blown away by what you guys do, because I know that this exists, right? We all know, we've heard the term lobbyist. I have no idea what you do, and I'm not going to pretend to act like I do. But to understand, you know, we talked to Liz Bowman, we have Stuart Salters coming on, we're talking to you, like, to get a better understanding and appreciation of what actually happens down there. For me, is like, I don't even know. I mean, it blows my mind that this actually exists and this is actually going on. And I don't know, I just think it's wicked cool. That's why I haven't been saying much. I've been just kind of like staring at because it's really,
you know, that's tough, and that's tough for Joe.
And I don't ever shut up, so it's a big problem for me normally.
You thought I talked
anyway,
Zach.
You don't even come close.
It's
cool. It's cool. Yeah, it's just really cool. I feel like I could like listen to you talk about this.
And I appreciate it. I really appreciate what you do, and I'm not sure I fully did before. Seriously. Okay, it's pretty interesting. So I guess to round out the end of this and give you your last question, where do you see the future of the utility contracting industry going? Like, where, you know, you're kind of in the middle of it, trying to drive it in a good direction. Where do you see it going?
So again, it's a great question, because right now there's just so much going on. These next few years could be very transformative. And a lot of it does come back to this, you know, behemoth of an infrastructure bill that's slowly winding its way towards a final vote. Pretty much every major group in Washington is supporting the core infrastructure bill, the bipartisan bill that passed the Senate a couple months ago, because there is just so much in there that will go a long way towards fixing a lot of the chronic needs in this country. I mentioned the water funding. There's $35 billion in funding for water. There's funding for electric vehicle charging stations in there, which, you know, as folks in this industry know, that's going to be a big opportunity to roll out a whole lot of new both modern electric grid and fiber broadband along all of our nation's surface transportation networks. And that is only going to pick up steam. Broadband in particular, again, another market that is just taking off across the country. With the modern age, the Internet of Things, we are going to need reliable high-speed broadband internet service in parts of this country that just do not have it right now.
I have a really stupid question, Zach, and it may be really stupid, but you talked about, changing the grid, the infrastructure grid, and for those electric cars, will they be able to share right away with that, with the oh my God, I just lost it. What we just saw, broadband. Could those projects go hand in hand, or are they doing them separately, completely separately?
A lot of folks are doing those hand in hand.
That's pretty neat.
I mean, that's, like I mentioned, the power and communication contractors, a lot of those folks do both.
That's pretty cool.
One thing that I want to mention on the natural gas side that's huge in this infrastructure bill, hydrogen is really picking up steam in this market. Both hydrogen blending, direct hydrogen transmission, blue, green hydrogen development, all of these things are really going to be a big part of our nation's energy future. Natural gas is here to stay in a lot of ways, but the market is changing. And this bill contains a lot of funding for that next step for the industry. There's $8 billion in hydrogen research. There's significant funding for carbon capture, utilization, and storage. So folks that are involved in that market are going to see a whole lot of additional federal dollars coming their way. Frankly, I think this bill has a lot to be excited for every aspect of the utility contracting industry. There's a lot of work.
What's the pushback, though? What's the pushback? I mean, what is the reason?
Why hasn't it just been approved?
Right. I mean, because I think we all agree that, it's necessary, right? I don't think there's anybody that disagrees that we need a lot of infrastructure work, but what is the pushback? I'm just curious, like what you're hearing or what people's response to that is.
So it's twofold. A lot of it is folks just think it doesn't go far enough, which, there's some merit to that. I mean, certainly, the utility contracting industry would have liked to see higher funding for water, because as I mentioned, that is probably the number one most underfunded part of our nation's underground infrastructure right now.
Sure.
But then there's also some political concerns that tie into it. This is a bipartisan bill in the Senate. It's kind of being paired with a very partisan reconciliation bill in the House. There's still some political questions as to how tied together these two really are. And so, there's a lot of wrangling right now going on in that chamber, trying to figure out just how linked these two pieces of legislation really are. They were supposed to vote on it today at the time of our recording. Now they're supposed to be pushing it to September 30th. So, we'll see what happens with that bill, but there is a tremendous amount of stuff in that bipartisan infrastructure bill that the utility contracting industry has a lot of reasons to be very happy about.
So let me ask you, because I'll keep going off on this tangent one more time, but I have one more question. Wait a minute. Why, this is something I've never understood, and maybe you definitely will be able to know the answer to this, but why do they pair these bills together? Why don't they just have them as standalones? Why do they try to come up with one, but then jam another one behind it? Like, why do they do that? It doesn't make sense to me.
I mean, it's a political thing. Both of these bills together are supposed to be read as this administration's agenda, essentially, for their first complete year in office. Okay. It's kind of a vote wrangling thing as well. The Democrats have such narrow majorities in both chambers that a handful of members can stop anything in its tracks. And that's essentially what's happening here. Again, as I said, some folks think that this bill doesn't go far enough. There was a lot of hurt feelings in the House among the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee because their bill didn't really get consideration in the Senate, their infrastructure package. Their infrastructure package had a lot of funding for things that aren't included in this. There was more money for transit. There was more money for water. There were a lot more climate initiatives in their version of the bill. And so they, among others, especially a lot of the Democrats' Progressive Caucus, have essentially said that unless the stuff that we wanted that didn't make it into the bipartisan bill is passed as part of the reconciliation bill, that they're not going to let either pass.
Gotcha. I just feel like sometimes something's better than nothing. I don't know. That's the kind of way I look at it.
And there's certainly a lot of folks in Washington that are making that argument right now.
Yeah.
This bipartisan infrastructure bill is really, unfortunately, these days, one of the rare examples of Congress really working together to get something done on a bipartisan basis. It is one of the largest federal infrastructure bills ever. And it has the potential to really do a lot of good, not only for this industry, but for the country as a whole. We can't keep kicking the can on infrastructure the way we have been for 30 years. Some of the stuff in here is the largest investment since Reagan and Eisenhower in our nation's underground infrastructure. And
but I think you're right. Like, I think this is one of those things that regardless of what side of the aisle you sit on, you realize that it's necessary.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
Well, with that all said, so what can we, as our little webcast that we have here, but we've got a decent little following, and so what can our viewers and those who are involved in the industry and ourselves do to champion the cause? How can we help?
We give him Zack's phone number. Everyone.
Yeah, everyone put it up there.
Well, I know at UCT, I think it was, or DCA, one of them, during the government relations committee and whatnot, you have access to everyone's congressman and senator and all of this stuff. And, I
thought you were going to say everyone's social security number.
That too, but that was
you wouldn't be on our show.
That was just for the bank transfer. You have to, it gets wiped after once you send the money in. But no, like there were some emails drafted and some informational sites and all this stuff. So how can our viewers, how can those of us who are involved in the industry help support, the things that benefit our industry from your perspective?
I love that question. I always love when people ask me, how can I get involved?
Yeah.
Because what we do would not be possible without the folks in the industry, who I like to say are actually doing a real job, like what I do, without those folks standing behind us and participating in the process as well. And so there are a lot of things you can do. One, there's your civic participation. So vote, always vote. Make sure you're registered to vote. Look up who's running in your district. We're coming up on a midterm year. Support candidates that support the industry. If you even have time and the motivation, you can even volunteer for a campaign.
Or run for Congress, Ted.
Or run for Congress. Anything you can do to build participation as an individual, get to know folks that are active in your area. And that kind of ties in with my next point. Get involved with what we're doing. So when we do a grassroots campaign, take part. If we're doing a fly-in for one of our clients and you're a member of that organization, come into town. Go speak with your member of Congress, send an email, call their office, just connect with them, try to build a relationship and build understanding with them. Even if you are at polar opposites of the political spectrum from them, they need to hear from you. Don't assume that, my member of Congress and we disagree on everything and what I say is just going to go straight into the trash. Maybe if it's just one person saying that, they're not going to pay attention. But if they start hearing from hundreds of constituents, all with the same point of view, they're going to take notice. And they always do. And so just getting involved in the process, engaging with us here in Washington who work on your behalf, both me and your member of Congress, is the number one thing you can do to help support, what you believe in and what the industry believes in and represents.
I guess my last question is, when am I going to see the billboard for Zack Perconti for Congress on the side of the road?
We can have that conversation.
Yes.
I hope, man. You're like, I want to say, thanks. We can probably talk to you forever. We learned a lot from you.
When we keep coming up with more questions that are off script, it's really good. Because I got another one.
I have one last one, seriously. And this kind of
can't get out of it.
No, because you guys, listen, let me ask this. Like, you hear a lot of stuff on social media and the news about these bills and these packages and these, like, how do common people get to read or know or understand what is actually in them without having to read 9,000 pages? Like, how do people honestly, because most people get their ideas and their messaging from people that have already read them or are already just kind of spitting out the talking points of them. How do people like really get to read the documents or understand what's actually going on rather than just parroting what they hear from Twitter or Facebook or another social media platform? Is there a way?
So that is an excellent question. That might actually be my favorite question that's been asked so far, because I mean, there is, you know, and I'll take the bipartisan infrastructure bill for an example. There is a lot of misinformation out there about it. And I've been hearing that from everyone across the board. I mean, I've had members of Congress tell me directly that, you know, they're really frustrated because they're getting calls from constituents who don't really understand what's in the bill. And so, you know, that colors their perspective in a way that it really shouldn't. And that's on both sides of the aisle, frankly, that I'm hearing that from members of Congress. You know, I've had Democrats and Republicans tell me the same thing. And part of that has been it's, you know, confused with the reconciliation bill, but part of that is it's almost a 3,000 page bill. There's a whole lot of stuff in there that you know the average person doesn't hear about. You know, I've read pretty much the entire thing because that's my job, but most people don't have time to sit down and read, you know, hundreds of pages. I mean, even the section by section, which is one of the things I am going to point folks to, is like 50 pages for this bill.
But still, that's something that you can commit to. I mean, like when I was in high school, I never read the book. I got Cliff Notes. Where can I get?
But is it written? You know, my one of my questions, Zach, is it written in what I want to say is common man language, or is it written in some type of political? I've never even sat down and read a page of it. So
yeah, so the bill itself is, you know, definitely dense legalese. I mean, there are definitely paragraphs that say section such and such of the U.S. Code is amended as following, strike the semicolon and insert, you know, that sort of stuff.
I'm done.
I'm
already
not
done.
a lawyer, actually, sometimes I think I should be. But there are things out there that are great resources. So number one, me. If you're part of, you know, DCA or PCCA or NUCA, take a look at the publications that we put out, the newsletters, the stuff on the website. We'll try to break down what's in that bill to be more relevant for you. So you'll know, you know, again, I keep coming back to the water funding because there's so much of it. But you can see, you know, how much funding for this program, how much funding for this other water program, what policy changes are in there. There are some permitting reforms that the industry has been asking for a long time, like codification of the one federal decision executive order from the last administration. That's included in this. So there's a whole lot of stuff in there that we'll highlight that's directly relevant to you. There are also things out there that you can go to and find pretty quickly, just, you know, with a Google search, where you're going direct to the source. And you can really get an understanding of everything that's in a major piece of legislation by this. The number one document that I send people directly when they ask me, you know, don't just give me the bullets, give me a real in-depth summary. I'll send them the section by section, which is what every committee when they've got a giant bill like this, they'll put out that document and it just breaks down, you know, what does each individual part of the bill do. For some bills, that's 2 pages long. For one like this, it's 50. So it's not always light reading, but, you know, it does have a lot of really good information. And
better
then
than 3,000.
The last thing that I will send folks to, there are a whole lot of DC trade publications, so to speak, for the lobby world that have good information in them as well. And so for that, you're going to look to your Politico, The Hill, Roll Call, sometimes Bloomberg.
Sometimes
Bloomberg, the media, but it's, you know, so you're still getting it distilled from a reporter, but because it's in that DC policy world, it's a little bit of a different perspective. Often they'll have links directly to those documents that I've discussed. And, you know, the ones that I just mentioned, I mean, that covers a pretty good source of political opinions. You know, Politico and The Hill and Roll Call, they run the gamut. Often they're a little more conservative than not, but I mean, they've got a pretty good unbiased perspective most of the time. And so I think pretty much everyone can feel confident in what they're reading from those sources. So it's just kind of a matter of, you know, where do you go for your information? There's a lot of options, but if you can get as close to the source as possible with a lot of this DC stuff, you can either find the documents directly, or you can get a pretty good unbiased summary of what's actually in it, and then make your opinions from there.
I like that. I like the fact that you said unbiased summary, because I think that's the biggest problem is that people get their news or their information from just really wild places that aren't
Unbiased.
credible either. You know, if Tom from Twitter said, you know, I'm sorry, I hate to say that, but that's how like a lot of people get their information and make their judgments and opinions. One last thing I had very quickly, do you post any of this stuff on your LinkedIn page, or do you share this type of information on social media? I just don't know how active you are. I was curious.
I am a little bit of a Luddite, I'll admit. I'm not the most active on social media, but Wyman Associates is now.
Okay.
We've got our own page, which, you know, please go to Wyman Associates on LinkedIn and you can follow us
Absolutely.
there. My colleague, Eben Wyman, also is very active. He posts a lot of stuff that we're involved in on there. And then, you know, if you ever want to get in touch with me, you can send me a message on my LinkedIn page, and that I generally do respond to fairly quickly.
Okay.
Awesome.
I just want to know, so people you said reach out to me or if they have questions and things like that. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not like our
Oh,
27.
he didn't mean it though. He
I
didn't
don't
mean
think we don't have 27 million followers. They're going to inundate your message box, but
everybody
no,
text Zach.
I mean, I am not connected to
Please don't.
to Wyman, but I will. And these guys know I post like a maniac, so I'm always posting stuff, and I'd be more than happy to share that content. I want to say thank you, man, for coming on the show.
Yeah.
Like, it's always cool to get somebody's perspective, especially from a world that we don't exist in or even remotely understand. So for you to take your time to come on here, and I just want to say thanks for Teddy for getting to meet you. He's the reason that you came on the show. I can't believe it, but thank you for that. And you're still talking to us, but I hope someday that you know, maybe in like a couple of months, like you're one of the few guests I think that would really be awesome to have back on to talk about what's happening.
What's happening in current events.
Yeah, what's like a current event, what's happening. So let's circle back on that if it's something you'd be interested in, because I think it'd be worthwhile.
We've also kicked around trying to come to DC and try and record some stuff live with some of the people that we've met there too.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I don't want to meet this
Cool.
person.
I'd be happy to do both.
Well,
There's certainly no shortage of stuff to talk about. I mean, we could go for another 2 hours. If you have time.
my ears might bleed. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, Zach, thank you so much. We really appreciate you. I know Joe learned a lot because he asked a lot of questions. I learned a ton. So, and Chad was Chad. So
No,
I don't remember anything we just did. And I don't remember anything we just talked about.
I would like to definitely bend your ear a little bit more, because I definitely have 1,000 more questions. So, you know, we'll probably reach out to you here, and you know, after we have some trade shows coming up, but afterwards, I think there's a lot more I'd like to know about what you do. It's very interesting to me.
Same.
So thank you for that.
thank you for joining us, Zach. We really appreciate you, buddy. We'll talk to you
Zach.
soon.
Thanks for having me.
Wow, Zach, great interview. As always, Joe mocked me when I was asking about how we were going to end.
I legitimately, before I say thank you to Zach, I legitimately want Bree to go back and cut out every 15 seconds after an interview and like splice it together. Because
wow, Zach. Wow, Steve.
yeah,
Wow,
legitimately, like I want that to happen. I gotta write that down. Hold on before I
wow,
say
Dan.
Dan.
So that'll be
Teddy
great.
post interview. I gotta write that down.
Seriously though, Zach, I really learned a lot on that interview, and I appreciate you coming on the show. I'm glad we got to build a relationship over our time at DCA and UCT, and you know, I look forward to working with you in the future here.
Yeah, I think, you know, again, we talked about it in the earlier part before the interview. Like
The intro.
Is that what we call him?
Yeah.
Zach's just I think just like everything else, we talk to people that come from different parts of the industry, right? And it's very unique to talk to somebody that comes from kind of that side, because it's not a sales side, it's not a material side, it's not a customer side, it's not you know, it's a side that we don't really as common folk ever get to see or learn about. And I sometimes wish that, like, especially having kids, that kids would get to see that side of government and understand that. I think Zach did an amazing job explaining what he does, why they do it, and the benefit of organizations like his and other organizations that are out there. I don't know. He's one of those people that, I mean, you guys know, me specifically, I could ask questions for 10 hours and we'd still be talking to him. Just a really fascinating guy, interesting career. And I think that, all kidding aside, Zach's got a big, bright future in that world. And I look forward to one day, being able to pick his brain again and talk to him a little bit more. The world's kind of weird. Things are happening as far as like policies and procedures, and things are changing so frequently and so aggressively, I think sometimes, that having that perspective of what's going on was really cool. So Zach, thank you for being part of the show. Thank you for taking your time, and hopefully we get to chat with you again. He's one of those guys that maybe in like 6 more months or so, get him back on and kind of see where we were, where we are, and where we're headed kind of situation. So no, pretty neat.
Pretty agree.
I love that we all dressed up today.
Hoodies,
I'm
hats.
freezing. Lindsay hasn't turned on the heat in my house.
I have a space heater under here that is amazing. You should get one. They're like $12.
That's how I had it at my old house. When we started the show, I had a space heater right under my desk like that.
Dude, I love it. It's so amazing.
You were also on like your back porch.
Yeah.
No, it was an office that had been, it was a porch that had been like actually like enclosed and turned into an office. But yeah, it was.
So it was an outdoor porch.
Good
Great in
talk.
the summer. Great in the summer.
What do we got coming up this week, Chad?
I don't know.
Huh? What?
See, you just totally missed the transition.
What was
Where are
it?
you and Joe going to be?
Oh, at the Greater
Good.
Chesapeake Damage Prevention Show.
There we go.
There it
There's
is.
actually, I'm a little bit excited and surprised. There was 44 vendors actually registered for this thing. I don't know how many customers, but I mean, 44 vendors just for that show, I assume is a lot of vendors. I've never been to it, but I've heard a lot of good things about it in the past.
I've never been to this one. I've been to a couple other ones, but I've never been to the Greater Chesapeake. I don't know. I think it's pretty interesting. The shows that we've been doing don't really, like, the companies like AGA, SGA, like, they don't really facilitate that much damage prevention. There are a couple like line markers, things like that, but it's kind of cool to see some of the new stuff, equipment, things that have maybe changed in the last couple of years, because we haven't been to one of these in two plus years. So it'll be fun. It'll be a good time, and hopefully attendance is good. We'll see kind of how it shakes out.
Cool.
Be on the lookout for Joe and Chad at the Greater
No one's
Chesapeake
going to that.
Damage Prevention.
But if you do, be on the
We'll
lookout.
be at the Green Turtle right next door.
Good talk, folks. Hey, thank you guys for joining us again here on episode number 77.
Oh, well, we were supposed to be keeping track of that, weren't we? Hold on.
78.
Let's clarify. Hold on. Let's clarify. Just for clarification's sake. Give me a second. I got
How
a
long is
little
this going to take?
about 30 seconds.
1,000, 2, 1,000. No,
This is 78.
It's
70.
like that dead air session when you get from the radio and there's
You guys could have talked in between while I was looking.
We didn't know what to say.
Staring at me.
You think it's 77? You think it's 78? You think it's 79? Which one do you think it is?
Maybe it's 80.
Hey, so really quick before we go, I just want we're halfway, not halfway, but we're maybe a third of the way through football season, roughly, give or take. I just want to know, almost half. Who do you guys have picks for the Super Bowl? Chad, I know you have no idea, but just pick 2 random teams.
This would be great.
I'm gonna have to go because I have to pick a team, obviously, in the NFC and the AFC, and I don't know which ones are in each. So, I can't even make an educated guess. Like I picked the Eagles, but I know they're terrible for some reason. I have no idea. I have no clue. And then on the opposite side, I don't know. I have no idea. Like the Cleveland Cavaliers.
You didn't even,
NBA.
Utah Jazz.
didn't even get the right sport. This is clearly not a
Denver Nuggets.
sports talk show.
It
Holy
could
cow,
be
Teddy, who do you
hockey
got?
for you too? But that's
Yeah.
the only one I can't speak at.
I could do that one, but
I haven't even paid attention to hockey this year.
they've played 5 games, man. I don't think it's time to be picking a Stanley Cup champion yet.
Joe, what about you, buddy? Who you got?
I really like Tennessee's in the AFC, right?
Yep.
I really like Tennessee, but I also struggle because I really like Buffalo. I think Buffalo's a tough out because of their defense. I think Tennessee's a tough out because of their offense. I have a feeling that those two are going to be probably. I was kind of a Kansas City guy, but they've just kind of fallen apart. Like, I don't know what's going on with them. Out of the NFC, like, as much as this pains me, I have to say Dallas. They look pretty good, but they haven't really played anybody that stellar. I also like Green Bay, as much as that kills me to say. Green Bay is really good. Aaron Rodgers is, and same thing with Tom Brady. Like, they just keep winning. Like, I don't understand it. Tom Brady threw 600 touchdowns. 600 touchdowns.
Yeah, That's
I haven't
crazy.
done anything 600 times in my life. This guy's thrown 600 touchdowns. So
Hey, we're gonna have 600 of these episodes one day.
I hope not.
I hope so.
That's how many years is that? That's like a lot of years.
12, roughly.
Yeah. If I'm
11
still
and
doing
some
this in
change.
another 11 years, I'm gonna probably.
But
All right. Well, since we're going,
Who do you pick? Wait, you didn't pick.
I don't want to jinx my team like I did last year against you. So I also like Tampa Bay. They're the only team to beat Dallas so far. And the Rams. The Rams are really
Rams
good.
aren't looking nice. Yeah.
The Rams are really good. Sean McVay and Matt Stafford is a heck of a combination. And then out of the AFC, this is going to be a little bit of a dark horse.
You say
And-
Baltimore, I'm throwing something at the screen.
Well, no, Cincinnati.
Cincinnati's nice.
Cincinnati.
Joe Burrows
they really,
is legit.
Jamar Chase, the rookie wide receiver out of LSU, has more yards through 7 games than anyone in like the history of the NFL as a rookie,
You know-
besides I think Randy Moss.
Do you
Might have
remember
broke Randy Moss's
preseason?
record.
He couldn't even catch the ball.
Well, he said it, he goes, it was harder to catch because it doesn't have lines on it. And then he's just destroying everyone in the NFL.
Cincinnati's, I don't know how dark of a pick they are, but they're pretty good. That'd be cool for the city too.
I would be happy
Anyway,
for him.
I want to say this: if anybody's still watching the show, comment on your picks. Just it's something
Yeah,
fun.
and then
to
I'll
do.
pick them apart.
I tell you what. Comment on your picks. If you get a pick, if you get your picks right at the end of the year, whoever gets them the 2 right, we'll give them $20. We'll send you $20 gift. $20.
there's no
gift
chance
card.
that's happening.
I'll
Because
do
don't
it.
forget what episode it was on.
We'll write them down.
78. This is a
You
act
couldn't
like
even
we-
remember to say it was 78.
You act like we get millions of comments. If we get 3, it'll be I mean, Doug, thank you for whatever you say.
Love
And
you,
whoever
Doug.
else.
It's very altruistic of you, Doug. Have a good day, folks. Remember to like, subscribe, click, share. Have a great one, guys.